2007 New Jersey, April 18th, Route 23 north to Route 519. The day started out cloudy and cold for April, with the temperatures in the 40s. This is supposed to be the coldest April on record, and it is so much different than it was last year when we were here at the same time. No sun and no flowers budding on the trees, just bare trees and cold temperatures this year. We had just had a big northeaster come through, and for the past 3 days, we have had pouring rain and wet snow. David forgot his waterproof boots at home, and we feared the worst trail conditions with flooded conditions and lots of water on the trail. On top of this, I had been sick for the past 12 days and was still recovering. We started the trail at the ranger station off of Route 23 and headed north toward the High Point Monument on the AT. The climb up was moderate, with a lot of small rocks on the trail making the walking difficult. There were rocks everywhere, on the trail and in the surrounding woods. Some people had even made rock cairns from the small rocks. We passed a large scat pile on the trail that looked fresh. It was about 7 inches long and had white hair in it, and it looked like it was from the cat family. Maybe a lion? A ranger at the ranger station showed us a picture of a wolf. So maybe it was wolf scat? We saw a lot of views of the High Point Monument from the trail during the climb. One area looked like a picture that I had seen inside this month's AT calendar. We took the monument trail off the AT to go to the monument. This trail was a very hard climb. We reached an old wooden platform with some nice views and continued on the trail to the monument. However, when we reached the monument, we were shocked to find that the monument was fenced in and was closed for repairs. We were disappointed about doing the extra mileage off the trail to see the monument and that we couldn't even go up it, so we headed back down to the AT. The AT descended after the monument trail, and it was still very rocky. We reached a new outhouse that was in a flooded area, and the outhouse was in the water. We knew that the shelter was somewhere near the outhouse, and we found a side trail down a hill to the High Point shelter, and it was also in a flooded area. The old stone lean-to had a tin roof that looked like it leaked. In the logbook, we found an entry that 2 section hikers out for a 6-day backpacking trip had stayed the night in here. They wrote that it was a cold and damp night here. There was a picnic table here in the water that had come down from the privy, had went into 2 streams. That was the water source for the shelter. This would have been a nice area if it was not flooded and if it was a nice, sunny, and dry day. We continued north on the trail after eating our lunch at the shelter and had come out of the rocks onto a nice dirt path. We reached an area, my favorite area, with a stream. There were 2 steep banks with lush moss on the banks and 2 birdhouses put up by the Park Service. We did not know what type of birdhouses that they were for. There was some down tree branches over the trail, and I had reached down to try to move them off the trail. Unfortunately, one of the branches had swung back and hit me hard in the nose. It hurt really bad and was bleeding. I had started to cry, and Dave came over and took care of me. He put a Band-Aid on my nose. I hope that I do not get a scar. We continued down a little steep hill and entered a meadow. It was a pretty area after leaving the rocky woods. Mostly, I did not find the New Jersey woods very pretty, so it is nice to find such a pretty area. We continued to descend more steeply and reached Route 519. Someone had made a wooden sign to show that the AT crossed the road here. We turned around and headed back. The weather had stayed cloudy and cold all day. We had seen a beaver, a turkey, a crane, and some ducks off the park road, but nothing on the trail. We did hear some birds and some kind of strange animal sound that we could not identify. April 19th, Brink Road Shelter, south to a Boy Scouts bridge. The day had started out totally overcast, and it looked like it would start raining any second. We got on the trail at 10:30 and had about 7 miles total to cover today. I tried to stay in the moment, but my thoughts kept thinking about time. We started on the Shea Trail off of Diamond Road in the town of Sandyston, which headed to Brink Road. This was about a 0.6-mile dirt road walk to Brink Road, and then another 0.2-mile on Brink Road. That was another dirt road that went to Brink Road Shelter. This shelter is where we were when we came in from the north in 2006. The New Jersey shelters are always very old and appear to be the original shelters on the Appalachian Trail. This time, the area of the shelter was flooded because of the northeaster that had flooded this area 2 days ago. We reached the AT junction and headed southbound on the trail. The trail started immediately with a climb. On the map, there was a symbol, a camera, for a view. We had seen some views on the way up, but was not sure what view the symbol was supposed to be for. I mean, really, there was nothing that really had stuck out up here. We emerged onto an open grassy area with beautiful views for miles to the west. We could see snow still on distant peaks. We descended and entered a wooded area and then through a nice pine forest. We reached a sign announcing that we had entered the Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area on the Appalachian Trail. We thought that we must be to Rattlesnake Mountain. However, we descended from another view and had went a long distance in the woods and then climbed again. Again, we believed that this time we had finally reached Rattlesnake Mountain, but there was no sign. We were hoping to see a rattlesnake up here since many hikers had reported seeing some up here. Of course, we wanted to see it from a distance, a very safe distance. Maybe if it was just sunning itself on a rock with no interest in us at all, but we did not see any. We were debating if we should eat our lunch here or to just continue hiking until we reached the Boy Scout Bridge, which is our turnaround point for today. The view was great here, and it overlooked a large swamp with the sound of the first peepers out, but we decided to continue heading to the bridge. We wanted to make it to where we were when we had come up on the Buttermilk Falls Trail last year. It was only 12:10 when we reached the bridge and sat down on it to eat our lunch. We remarked about how we were making great timing on the trail today. We climbed back up to Rattlesnake Mountain and the sun had finally came out. It felt great after the 5 days of the rain, the snow, and the cold. The rest of the week was forecast to be sunny and beautiful. We saw some paw prints and found several scats on the rock up here with hair in it and some red hair like a fox or a coyote or even a wolf. On the hike back, we passed a swamp and we had heard lots of peepers and a woodpecker in the background. There is a lot of wildlife out here, we just don't see them. However, we did see some spring flowers, maybe bloodroot, they sprung up with the spring sun. The afternoon turned out to be a nice day, and this was a very nice section of the trail.